Welcome. I'm Debbie Rosas, and you are listening to Get In. I'm the founder and co creator of NIA. NIA is an international workout practice lifestyle. It's been changing people's bodies and lives since 1983 using movement. We say through movement we find health. And boy, are we going to talk about health today and movement. But our topic today is something quite unique. Now, think about this. You are the medicine. That's what our guest today is going to talk all about. I love the thought that I'm the medicine. And then here we go. Heal. You know, it's all about healing, right? Heal, fight, flight, freeze. Well, I have definitely experienced the fight, flight, freeze. Just did it last night. That moment where you're just frozen in time. You can't function, right? And expand your creative impulse. Who doesn't want to expand their creative impulse? But I'm curious to find out what our guest has to say about creative impulse. My guest today, Gloria Gonzalez. Now, I met Gloria years ago. She had a beautiful studio in one of my favorite places on the planet, La Jolla, California. Ah, what a place. And this was a beautiful little studio tucked away upstairs. And the first time I stepped into the space, I felt, this is different than a gym. I saw the exercise equipment, but I knew whoever owned this space, there was something else going on. Well, what gave it away? Well, maybe it was the herbs behind the desk when I walked in. Maybe it was the smell. Maybe it was the fact that when I walked in, the way I was greeted, there was such a personal connection. Carlos and I ended up doing several events at this beautiful location. And Gloria, well, she was one of the first people to train in the NIA technique. Yep, one of the first trainings that we had at Rancho La Puerta. It was a small group. I think there were two, and Gloria was one of the two. And this was when our relationship began. Now, she no longer owns that studio that as she talked about, it was a somatic education and wellness center, and it certainly was. It wasn't just about the machines. It was really about health and wellness and the whole being, which is the thing I just loved. Now, Gloria's a lot like me. She's a mover, she's a shaker. Oh my God, does she love learning? She loves growing. I have such memory of the hours that we spent talking about business and how to grow business, how to be a good leader in business. And it always got around to all the emotional stuff that we were going through as individual women in business and running a business and so much wanting to create a collective collaboration of people working in the business. Not always so easy. Gloria, well, like many of you, she's passionate about body and life, but creating a healthy body and life. Now, what sets her apart from the norm is her approach. Her approach is personal, it's holistic, it is certainly connected to the felt sense. It is driven by incredible knowledge of this system, this beautiful body, this map that we are given, this architecture, this anatomy. She's got lots and lots of knowledge around the anatomy of the body. But she's interested in high performance and what she calls reaching high performance. I'm not talking about running a marathon here. I'm talking about high performance of what she says is the most important things in life. That is the integration of family, health, and profession, right? Family, health, and profession. She describes herself as a change leader and as someone who helps change leaders. Well, I can tell you, she has helped me. Had a call with her a few weeks ago. I always feel changed when I get off a call from her. And why? Because she always shares what she knows. She always shares what's up for her, which makes our relationship and communication something that's intimate, timely and relevant always. And I love that. So I walk away feeling changed. She works with, as she says, executives, parents, therapists, healers, people that are leading change in other people. And her focus, just what she does with me, she does with everybody. She wants to awaken you to something that maybe you don't see, you don't even hear, you didn't even know was there, you didn't even know you needed. She does this by helping us discover the missing change piece. I call it the missing piece of the puzzle for that day, but it's a missing change piece. And sometimes it's a piece that's been needed for a long time. And sometimes it's a piece that we just need in this moment to get through whatever it is that we're dealing with. She's the creator of the, say it with me, am I am medicine. Don't you love that? That feels so good to say, I am medicine. And what she calls 5 cycle expansion. And this knowledge clearly guides and teaches us that this is how things grow. Well, you got to seed things. She's going to help us seed some ideas. This is how things grow and how they expand. And well, if you live in a body, guess what? You're in constant motion, you're constant growing, and whether you're resisting the expansion or not, life is wanting you to expand. Contraction doesn't work. And we need more space, more looseness, more fluidity, more knowledge to help us expand. Gloria is on a mission. She wants to join, just like I was on a mission to join Eastern and Western. She wants to join Eastern tradition with Western paradigms to support the expanded view of biology and spirit as one, as something inseparable, interconnected intelligence that reveals an unparalleled, I love this, an unparalleled, emergent healing force that leads to so many health benefits. But what's a big one that we need to deal with today? There's so much of it. Stress reduction, dealing with PTSD. How do we calm our nervous system? And how do we deal with trauma repair? Trauma from watching the news or trauma from COVID or a personal trauma. How do we deal with that? And I love the word repair. And what she feels is so important, that intrinsic motivation, right? The inner fulfillment of health, work, family, and here's the big one, because this is at the source of healing, love. We say it a lot in Nia. Love your body, love your life, self love. Well, it's just a word until you activate that love as a healing force. Now, as I mentioned, Gloria is passionate about business, relationships, and all things. But the thing that makes her special is her dedicated study. Dedicated study. There isn't a time when I don't say, Gloria, what are you studying now? What class are you taking? Who are you learning from? It's ongoing, and this is what makes her masterful in healing. She is trained in brown belt in the Nia technique, Iyengar yoga, craniosacral therapy, visceral manipulation, somatic trauma therapies, and 5 elements theory. So she's pulling from lots of disciplines, which makes it so powerful when she puts her hands on you, because she does, or when she sits across from you, she sees you and she personalizes and talks to you and pulls exactly what you need. Needless to say, Gloria has a lot to say, so I'm going to be quiet and we're going to let this beautiful human being share this body and life wisdom she's so full of. Welcome, Gloria.
Thank you, Debbie. What an introduction. Oh my gosh, I always feel larger than life when I leave being with you.
Well, you know what? The thing that I love about you, I don't know that you're larger than life, but you play life large and you have never, ever played it small. And we've talked about this as women in business, falling down, getting up, falling down, getting up, people leaving, people calling you names, whatever it is. One thing I know about you is you always get back up.
Always.
And yeah, always, always. So I always like to start out with the personal. We go from personal to professional. So I want a little bit about your history, about your body and your life. And where did you grow up? Where did you come from? Tell us a little about your family background that maybe inspired you to become a healer, or your family life was such the opposite. You said, "Oh, I really need to be a healer."
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a great place to start, and I do want to start with just one small thing,
Mhm.
which is that we've known each other for 35 years. When we met at Rancho La Puerta, studying, exploring, discovering what health and wellness meant at a whole different level. And it was I thought I was in a yoga class. The last thing I wanted to do was take a dance class. But I ended up staying, and I had such an awesome time being comfortable in my body, which is where we can say part of the journey began is I'm not comfortable in my body. I did anything I could in high school to get away from being in any sports or movement class or exercise class. The only one I ever took was weight training, but I loved that one. And I made sure to get out of school early, even though I liked to study. There were things that I was avoiding. In particular, it was my body. And then I went to college and I started majoring in nutrition. I changed to kinesiology, the study of anatomy and physiology, which was kind of groundbreaking at the time. That was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And I took my first fight flight class on the Herbert Benson relaxation
Uh-huh.
response. If you remember when that came out,
I certainly
it
do,
was
yeah.
1981. And so here we are studying fight flight. And I'm just going to mention when we talk about having a creative impulse, whatever it is that you're meant to bring in this life, it's been there for a really long time. Any mother knows that about her child. When she sees her children, she'll see the differences in each of them and she'll know what's already there in the child. As much as you might want to nurture differently, you have to nurture according to the seed that that child is, right? And when you do that, they grow better. So that seed was there with me in college. And I actually had to write a thesis paper to graduate from kinesiology. And my thesis paper was on acupuncture and Western medicine. And I did an analysis of musculoskeletal pain in the spine. And I forgot all about that. I taught acupuncture, I taught 5 element theory to all these folks. And the seed was there, it was starting to grow, it was coming alive. And then coming out to California from Washington, D.C., I started meeting up with people like people who brought more of the art and movement. And how can you address the whole being and not just the science of things to help to understand how is it that we really want to get healthy? How is it that we really want to grow? And so that was when I came and met you in Nia. That was a mind and body altering experience.
Was there a moment that you can reflect back as a little girl? And I'll give you an example. I played with dolls a lot. My sister never played with dolls. And I can always remember bandaging them, fixing them, doing things to make them feel better. It was like I kind of knew that that's what I, wanted to do from a soul spiritual level, but I didn't consciously know it. Did you have a moment like that even as a child?
Uh, well, I had a few moments, but if there's something that relates to what you just said, do you remember that game Operation?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Right? Uh-huh. I loved that game. I loved it. I could play it over. You got to take the little tweezers and you got to do surgery
Uh-huh.
and get something out. Okay. So, when I was studying kinesiology, my initial impulse was to go pre-med and go on to medical school and become a surgeon. Until I discovered that I couldn't really handle blood. I would pass out giving blood at the American Red Cross.
Okay,
So
that's
it's
an
like,
issue.
okay, we might need to change this. This might be too much for me on one level. But, I have to say that the other thing that I did was I wrote up a whole newspaper and did marketing in it. And I ran little mini businesses too. So that I was doing more of that when I was little than I was doing anything, quote, medically oriented. So all of it's there, all of it.
It's so fun to go back and look at how all the strings that creative impulse, right? I
Yeah.
can remember putting on shows in the neighborhood to raise money to send to different organizations to help children heal, right,
Yes.
etcetera. So it's so fun to look back at that creative impulse that you say that maybe is conscious and maybe not conscious. I know that, I have these wonderful handouts that you
Yes.
created for Nia, and I'm hoping that we can repost them, but you may wanna
Sure.
look at them and make sure you like what you said. But anyway, they're fantastic. And, there's so much in you in terms of tools and information to heal. Now you have had your own recent healing crisis, and I believe that at some time, healers are always face to face with, wow, what's it like to be in the environment and having somebody else taking care of you to heal you, right? Oh my gosh, am I going to be taken care of? Talk about fight, flight, freeze, right? And and yet you have so much knowledge of knowing that you are there to collaborate with the healers, to help. Tell us that story.
Oh gosh, this was just a couple months ago, and it was such a simple healing crisis on the one hand. I would call it a completion, really,
Okay.
of so many layers of the self. When you go back and you write in your journal and and maybe you look at a dream, you start seeing the layers that were present in that. So this was almost like a dream in a certain way.
Hmm.
And I'll make a long story short, and I'll save you, too many of the specifics. But one morning I woke up. It was a Monday morning, so the week is getting going, and I noticed a lump in my pelvic area. And so I thought, okay, this isn't good. And I'm feeling something down. Okay, I'm going to go to urgent care. And the reason that I went to urgent care, not the only reason, but I was running that morning on the beach because that's where I go. And as I'm running along, nobody is on the beach except one man walking with his back towards me. He's walking away from me, big white shirt and a big blue plus sign and medical written over top of it. And when I saw that, I thought, okay, Gloria, you're going to have to give in. Something's going on. And I took a photo of
Talk
it.
about a sign in your face.
It was right there. And that was like 10 o'clock. And by 10:30, I was online scheduling my urgent care session. And I went in and they were like, okay, you need a CT scan. And here, take these antibiotics and go home. Well, by the next morning, I was in such pain. I had had back pain for a few days and just kind of figured she told me it's back pain. I thought, no, it's not the physician. I thought it's not back pain. Something's up, but I don't know what it is. It must be show up in that CT scan. So I had to go to the ER the next day.
Oh,
And when I went into the ER and I got the CT scan, the basic uh, quote diagnosis was that I had a 6-inch, like some kind of mass in my uterus, and they were going to have to do a full abdominal surgery to get it out. Because when you have masses and things, you don't want to disturb the mass in case there's cancer. It's not safe to do so. They want to open up because they couldn't get any kind of um, I can't think of the word right now when they
picture.
a picture, but when they do it, they do an initial diagnosis.
Mhm.
They couldn't quite get one. Anyways, I started getting the look from them, and I rightly so, with how many people come in to see them, that I was getting this the C word, the look in the eye, like this is not looking good. And my husband, who was with me, when they left, I turned to him. I was laying down because I was in the ER and, all kinds of tubes and things going on. I said, you know what? This is not to comfort you. This isn't to deny, I don't think. But I think I'm actually fine. I don't think, whatever it is, it's not that complicated.
Mhm.
I feel it. So, as I heard, you better go medical, I also heard once I was there, you're okay. And as the week progressed, what happened was the mass released itself. It bled through.
Wow.
And I was scheduled for major surgery the next morning. And I was on heavy duty narcotics by this time. And less than 12 hours before the surgery was scheduled, another, what I call listening, came to me. It's like, do not get that. And I proceeded to get on my phone while I'm in bed, coming off narcotics, heavy,
Wow.
like they were giving them every 20 minutes. And I started looking everything up, and I was like, I took it down from a laparotomy to laparoscopy down to a hysteroscopy. Just like simple procedure,
Mhm.
but that's what I got. And I went into surgery the next morning, 7 a.m., came out 2 p.m. I was out of the hospital, and I've been fine since.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
I
I owe it
love
all
the messaging. I love the
constant,
messaging, and you
constant.
are somebody that pays attention to the logic and the mystery.
Yes.
And I think that that is how we can be the best uh, co-creator of our healing is really saying, okay, this is the logic, but what's the mystery? And then the tapping into that voice of your body. So, would you say that that voice that you listened to when you said, "Okay, I'm not doing this to make you feel good, but I think I'm okay." Is that a creative impulse? Is that what you describe as a creative impulse?
That is the beginning of a creative impulse as I'm using the word. You're in collaboration with your internal rhythms and you're in collaboration with the greater whole. When you're really in that creative impulse, I call that expansive listening.
Mhm.
When you're in collaboration completely inside, you're sensing and feeling and scanning and knowing and sensing and feeling the environment outside, whether it's the physicians that are surrounding you or the signals of the things beeping or whatever it is, or the temperature of the day. So that kind of listening, moment by moment listening, is what I call that too.
Mhm.
Is definitely part of the creative impulse. If you don't have the listening, it's a little more challenging for your creative impulse, the seed inside you and the roots that want to grow from that
Mhm.
to come forward and really take hold in a really firm and strong and clear way.
The listening, I just this morning did an event with a beautiful author, Lissa Rankin, and was talking about hand signals as a patient working with a healer
Mhm.
and having a hand signal of stop. I need to go inside and ask my body, stop. I need to go inside and just listen and check in. And then, okay, now I'm ready to receive some more information. Stop, that's enough. Let me go in and take it in. So having this process that allows the patient and really supports the patient and acknowledges for the patient that, hey, what your body is saying to you is valid, important information. When you talk about being a change leader, I I'd like to hear, first of all, what you mean by that. When I read that, I went, God, I want to be that. And I feel that part of the change leadership that needs to happen in the medical community and the healing community is this thing of reciprocity, of empowering the patient to also listen to their body, So, in Nia, we talk about the power of three. There's you were the patient, the physicians, the facilitators, and then in between was the relationship that was being created that includes your body. But what do you mean by change leaders?
Are leading the charge for other people who are looking up to them to lead in a new way, to lead in a more expanded way, to lead from, in this case, the greater whole and a more emergent way. So, for instance, you and I, Debbie, changed leaders back 35 years ago, right? From our perspective back then, wow, this wave is coming and we're on it and we're moving with it. And lo and behold, we find out 10 years later that it's still the bottom of the wave. It's what we're feeling the wave before it's coming even. And we hop on it right away. There's no questions asked. And then the bottom of the wave comes and then the middle and then finally sort of the top. You and I tracked with that over decades.
Yeah.
So I'm really talking more long term, people who are looking at an entire process of culture change, thought change, and that would be emanating out through the family, as we were talking about before, emanating through your health and radiating throughout your work. And so when you're working as a change leader, you're a bit of an eagle. You're flying alone, and you're clear on that. You're also clear that you're leading the pack at the same time. But that eagle's eye view is part of what allows you to be the change leader.
It can be a challenge today to be a change leader in a family that can be so divided on so many issues, whether it be politics or how to approach a medical issue. What do you tell people of how to find some kind of synchronicity, or is it even necessary in a family or business environment to create some kind of synchronicity, or let's agree to not agree?
Yeah, great question. It depends on what outcome you want. If you really want fulfillment, true fulfillment, then shared purpose and shared principles are of the utmost importance. Shared purpose is that seed and that those roots. And again, we're very clear on them. Even if we're decades ahead of time, we're not leaving that spot. And shared principles is working with the five cycles in this case, is how we work with it. Is this is how things grow. This is how you expand, is that you work in a particular order as you move through for a change. And of course, not everybody has to follow the five cycles, but they are a natural order. So, how I lead people when I go through five cycles, just to shorten that up for you,
Mhm.
is we're always looking at the state, the body state, and the body memory. We're looking at the somatic aspect because there's the body story and then there's the brain story. And the brain story always is, hey, I want to grow, I want to change, I want to expand. But if we're in a body state that is chronic fight, flight, freeze, which most of us have some of that we need to clear throughout our lifetime, if we've got that chronic state, it's going to say, no, contract, compress, don't change, don't expand, stay the same, stay exactly as you are. And so that conflict is the conflict that I work with that comes up between couples, that comes up for people in business, and that can come up in health too.
So I have a question. I understand that you're describing that the brain wants to expand, and then the body we can be locked in body stories. How do we help someone who is locked in a negative loop scenario in their brain that does not allow the potential that the brain has to help us expand. So
Mm,
they're locked in a brain
mm,
and a body story.
mhm,
How
mhm.
do you untangle that?
Okay, okay. You know, um, I'm using the words brain and body somewhat loosely. I mean, they're
Okay.
terms, that we just go back and forth. What are we really referring to? In the end, for me, it's all body. The
Mhm.
brain is the body, right? But that biology, okay, so when you're in a negative loop, let's go with that. When you're in a negative loop, for the most part, I'm always going to be working when I'm with a client to find out what is the body state that's driving that negative loop. I make an assumption and I try to work with clients in a way that they get clear. They're not criticizing themselves. They're not judging other people. They're not having an obsessive issue. Yes, it seems like they're having all those. They are in a state of survival.
Got
The
it.
body is caught in what I call hidden chronic arousal, a chronic state of fight, flight, freeze. In particular, it's going to be the freeze that's most commonly as they call it, the gas and the brake. It's the brake that's way below the surface that nobody's ever seen in them. They've never felt in themselves. That needs to be brought forward. That freeze state to melt. And if I give you an example, it's basically, in I've been to Wisconsin before. The lakes there, they get really, really thick ice, but that doesn't mean that everything that's below the ice isn't still alive. It is. And so when the springtime comes and the freeze melts, all the life comes teeming out and is ready to burst forward. Well, that's what a freeze state is like, except for that it never goes into spring. And one always finds themselves skating on top of the surface, same
Mm.
skate over and over and over again, wondering when the spring is really going to come. When are things going to change, grow, regenerate, and really come alive? Well, they come alive for a little bit and then they retreat, a little bit and then retreat. So working with the negative loop is often working with those three states, and in particular the freeze.
That is such a beautiful description that I think I can um I can imagine it now, the picture of the ice and the liveness of the water underneath. I can close my eyes and I can viscerally sense that, right? With the tension, the armor that I can create on the outside, but yet there's this breath and this movement of life force, always happening inside. That's such a great visual. Um, when you talk about the 5 fundamental cycles of how things grow, I know in Neo we teach the 5 levels of self-healing: embryonic, creeping, crawling, standing, walking, which are the developmental patterns that most healthy, able bodies go through to go from the ground right to standing, walking, all without a personal trainer, this primal instinct that's in us. How do you describe the 5 what you call fundamental cycles?
And the five cycles, like the five stages, are fundamental and natural order. They're in natural order. And how I describe them in the easiest way,
Mhm.
because like the five stages, you can actually get complex if you want to, is a way that everybody knows that we grow from seed and root to trunk to branches to flower and to fruit. And then the process starts all over again. It regenerates. And so if you know that it goes in that order and it doesn't go in the reverse, and if we've given a description, much like the embryological stage and creeping and crawling, et cetera, you know what happens at each of those stages. And then you know what to look for when things didn't happen, when that stage got moved through too quickly or not at all. Then we slowly guide, when we're in session, we slowly guide back towards finding and staying with a particular cycle like you talked about before, to find out which one's really missing.
Uh-huh.
That's going to help set the whole process forward again.
So
And
they're
so
like little synapses that connect, and we have you're helping to reconnect those. Now, are these 5 fundamental cycles part of the creative impulse, meaning you get the impulse, but then you actually finish the creative process?
yes, yeah. So what I found in working with trauma, and I'll have to interject here on myself for a moment, that
Okay.
when I had 8 elements west, which 8 elements, 5 of those elements were the 5 elements of Chinese medicine.
Mhm.
And now that I have I am the medicine, which is what I'm working now with, a 5 cycle expansion, I've taken those 5 elements and I've really studied them, and they do grow from seed and root to trunk to branch and flower and fruit. That if you look at the how the Chinese elements go from water to wood to fire to earth to metal, you get an archetypical picture of what each of the qualities that you want to embody look like. Maybe a little faster than roots, trunk, and branch, and so on. And so I use the 5 elements also to help clients integrate the different cycles so that they can see that water feeds the wood, wood feeds the fire,
Mhm.
fire creates the ash that turns into earth, and then earth turns into metal by condensing, and then metal alchemizes back into water, and the cycle starts all over again. It's nature, and we all have that within us. We all have those elements.
Well, you're really describing, when you say how things grow, right? And the alchemical process is such a part of how things grow. And the cycle, completely repeating the cycle, which of course we see. And we're a part of cycle every single day, you know, sun up, sun down, right? We live through cycles, the circadian rhythms that affect the heart, etc. We're part of these cycles. But what you're talking about is becoming conscious of where we may have skipped a fundamental and how that fundamental then might be affecting our alchemical process of living fully and expanding, growing and expanding day by day, moment by moment, right? Year by year, etc.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, when you talk about cultivating wholeness, you said there's nothing stronger than the impulse to become more fully yourself. Boy, absolutely. I think that is why people show up to a workshop. That's why people will go, I think I'm supposed to be doing this. It is the evolution of becoming fully yourself. Were there parts of you that since you have shut down 8 Elements West and the time that you used to spend on running a business, managing staff, there have been parts of yourself that you've discovered that have allowed you to say, I am now more fully myself?
Oh gosh, focusing all my attention um, quite consciously on my computer screen, for better and for worse. But do you know how it is? You're sleeping. You've got a business idea, and you're sleeping, and in the middle of the night, whatever, 3 a.m., you wake up and you start solving that problem,
Yeah.
and you go, you know what? This is really good stuff. And so I'm gonna keep solving that. I'm gonna stay up and just keep solving that. That happened over and over again to me after the business closed. And so I'd have to wake up the next morning, get on my computer, write everything down. A lot of it was graphics and images. And so I would do that for at least 2 years, and then came outlining the materials for everything, and now it's working with the actual descriptions and words, and things will come in the middle of the night, in the middle of the run. um, I can't say that anything's wildly changed, but what I have had is exactly what I need, is time to really integrate maybe what we'd call like the three levels of the brain, the reptilian brain, the mammalian, and the neocortical. Whereas maybe in the past, I would have to take turns between those. I can now integrate, as I please, as needed, to bring forward that creative impulse. Because there's nothing minor about bringing that out for yourself, let alone communicating it to an audience.
Yeah.
That's a really big task, is communicating it to an audience in a way that they want to and need to hear it. So that might be one of the other changes that I've been able to make, is enough time to go, how do I really say this to someone so that it lands? And I'm not interested in philosophy or concepts,
Mhm. Mhm.
standing on their own. It's really all of this, as far as change leadership, has to move into action. It has to move into application. So that is the big change. Maybe it's communicating to others properly.
So here's another question around the same topic. So you close that business, which the grieving process and the loss of identity and how your time was used has have you experienced what you believe the inner fulfillment now of health, work, family, and love in a different way, having closed that business?
Yes, I mean, it's definitely, you run a business, things can get out of balance really easily. There's no doubt about that. Um, yes, I have more time to even things out in that way. Um, that being said, I do like getting absorbed in stuff, so I will uh, get out of balance, so to speak, on purpose, only because I'm so absorbed in the art, in the creative work of whatever I'm doing. And but I always return back to balance just soon after that. I know what I'm doing. I'm conscious. It's not happening unconsciously. That would be a different story, you know.
Yeah. Well, the
And
reason I ask this question is oftentimes somebody will say to me, "Oh my God, you work so much." And I'm like, I don't feel like I work so much. The way I integrate my passion, which is that evolution of self, right? Sharing the gifts that I've been given,
yeah,
developing and growing those gifts, and then family, friends, right? Business, all of those things fit, but there's not an equal slice of the pie, I've discovered.
yeah,
Never.
right,
Sometimes the family gets a big slice.
right.
Sometimes the work gets three-quarters of the pie.
Yeah.
Sometimes Debbie gets the whole pie, right? And I
Right.
think that it is, and this is part of, I think, what you talk about, this creative impulse. I think that if we allow the creative impulse to work with the matter, right? And the medium of our life and using our life force, the shape of that changes. And these formulas where it says, you should have half of this and half of that, it's not natural, right? Because when things, I can plant two seeds and they're going to grow at a different rate.
Yeah.
And all of those parts that you talk about that are important, the inner fulfillment of our health, our work, our family, our business, and love, those are all different seeds, but it is the love of those things that feeds every single one. And the moment I think that we lose the love for our work or the love for our family or the love for our health, that's when things start to get out of whack. And
Right.
that's when, okay, I'm not loving this, therefore I'm not bringing love to it. And that can be a time to step away and reassess. I feel that moment, and you talk about compression and adaptive survival. I feel that moment as a compression when all of a sudden I'm not enjoying my work. I'm not enjoying the business. And it's like something's got to give. What do you mean by compression and adaptive survival?
Well, we're going back with adaptive survival to that negative loop in the brain, the story, the negative story you might tell yourself,
Mhm.
that there's survival going on. It's been going on. You may have not noticed that you're either stuck on the inhale or you're stuck on the exhale.
Mm,
You are not cycling the way that would be natural. That would be the natural order for things. Everybody, has a tendency to either like their inhale a lot or like their exhale a lot. And
mhm,
to be stuck in that, and the inhale, you're stuck more in moving, going, pushing yourself. And when you're stuck on the exhale, you're kind of isolating down. You're getting a little smaller. You're not letting new things in as much. And so adaptive survival and compression happens in either case. We just use the word compression again somewhat loosely. I mean, because literally, of course, we need to compress and expand, compress and expand.
mhm.
That's a natural cycle of life. But the compression is when it's chronic.
When it's stuck.
When it's stuck and it's
Okay,
not cycling,
got
then we can call it chronic compression. You feel it, you know it, because you
yeah.
feel like, you know what? This is Sisyphus. I keep doing the same thing. I keep thinking I'm going to get this thing to move and go. And gosh, it looks like I'm going to have to try a new angle or get a new person or, go some new land or country. That's part of the Sisyphusian effort that's going on when there's too much compression and adaptive survival, and it keeps cloaking itself quite cleverly. Sometimes your cognitive brain again is leading the show for, hey, you want to expand? Why don't you go somewhere new? And so then it's convinced your body that that would really work. And of course, we know wherever you go, there you find yourself.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Well,
so
having been married 3 times, I can tell you that, "Oh, I've got to expand. I need to get
right.
out of this and go somewhere else." Well, get out of this. Well, guess what? You take the this with you
That this goes
wherever you
right with
go.
you. That's right. It goes right with you. Yeah.
Right. And yet the perception of being in another environment that you have space, right? Which is what change needs space.
Yes.
Growth needs space. Healing needs space. Relationships need space. All of those, words. The elements need space, right, to form. The seed needs the space, as you said, to root itself and to then develop into a trunk and have branches and flower and bear fruit. All of that needs space. So our relationship to space, I think, is the thing that we notice as, I feel better. So I describe when I say I feel better, I'm like, ah, there's more space. I feel more connected to the space. There's more space inside of me. What do you notice? And, as somebody that puts hands on bodies and does visceral manipulation, do you do you texturally notice besides breath? Can you sense more space change?
You were reading my mind, of course, Deb. 'Cause when you were saying that, needing space, needing space. One of my trainings in visceral manipulation, which is I'm so grateful for, where it's I'll just quickly term it within the osteopathic tradition. Not that it is that, but that it follows that type of training of being with the body. The word manipulation, uh, as Jean Pierre Barral, who started this particular track in France means to care for. It does not mean to take it and grab it and manipulate it. So we're caring for the organs. And so what happens with that? Well, we go up and we start a conversation with the organs. They want us to hear them. And so we train our hands how to listen. And the hands, when you've trained them, and I think everybody's hands to some degree, are very good listeners,
Yeah.
really good at integrating the information that's coming through, and which whether it's cognitively or it's sensation, et cetera. But you put your hands on and you can literally feel a movement of the organ in rhythm or out of rhythm because every organ has its own motility, its own cellular rhythm that it wants to go through regularly.
Mhm.
It can lose that rhythm with trauma, chronic arousal. And almost every organ you will find has undergone some kind of restriction or compression, some kind of place where it's gotten stuck. It's not, therefore, it's not moving through its normal cycles and rhythms. And it's either wanting to inhale again or it's wanting to exhale again. It's either stuck in either direction.
I love that. It brings in that quality. We talk about flow motion. And when there is flow motion, there is that expansion contraction, there is that in and out, there is that yin and yang exchanged. But more important, there's a tonal quality, a healthy tonal quality that you're able to sense in the palms of your hands. Your hands are listening for that tone. There's a word, not a Brahma, everything is sound. So everything has a sound. We can use words like, wow, I feel dense in my kidneys, or I feel like my lungs feel constricted. If we put a tone to that, we could hear high tones, low tones, louder tones, higher pitched tones, and you're feeling it through the palm of your hands. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, no, I just think
It,
it's fascinating. I think it's
well,
fascinating.
you know this. I think you called the organs the community,
Yeah,
right? Isn't
yeah,
and so greatly named because really, those of us who are in the somatic world, we're we're coming from the perspective that the body is really running the show. The subconscious is really running the show. Well,
yes.
where does that subconscious largely exist? In the internal organs. So if we think of it, so often it's called the second brain, your gut.
I call it
Y-
first. Yeah,
You and I would call it the first brain. Exactly.
yeah,
Where the rule is body first. Listen to the body first and only sometimes first and only can take you really far. So what we're doing when we put the hands on and we're listening and we get those rhythms, we're really hearing a whole story come through. If you get more skilled, I'm able to translate certain vibrations I feel through my hands. I'm able to translate them into pictures or stories or words or emotions that the person might be experiencing that is part of where the cycle is stuck. So I'm trying to help them integrate a larger story of what they're actually going through in their community, how the community is all getting along, how they're all moving, and translate that not only through the hand and the caring for the manipulation, but also giving them feedback from different levels that I'm able to translate for them. And it really works. A client really can get a lot of feedback from that.
do you use sound, tools, tuning forks, or anything in your healing?
No, I haven't used that. Usually you see the couch behind me. There's some time talking on the couch, and by the time we get to the table, it's really going direct with that
So
hands-on.
in
And
in the silence. Um,
yeah,
you I love how you bring back the importance of listening, not only for the healer, the person who's hands-on. So you sit
yeah,
on a couch, you talk to somebody, you're listening, you're hearing, but you're also hearing on a much your viscera is listening to their viscera,
Yes.
etcetera, right? So that
Right.
that communal kind of relationship and blending those internal rhythms. My rhythm is this, their rhythm is that. So that law of polarity, being able to measure what we talk about in Nia on the tonality of plucking that string. What is the sound of my string? What's the sound of their string? Just like an orchestra, you want to now help that patient that you're dealing with raise their vibration or at least come closer to yours if holding the space. Um, that functioning you talk about as a collaboration with the field, with the whole, by listening to your nervous system and the vibration, the environment. Can you sense when somebody walks in the room that all of a sudden the environment has changed?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, particularly if they are coming in with on the graphic equalizer, their chronic state of survival, adaptive survival is in the forefront of their being
Mhm.
when they walk in, sure. And then immediately as they sit, as you know, nothing is really scripted per se. It's all responding moment by moment with a whole body listening, as you were saying, as I call it, whole body listening to them and knowing, maybe I knew a few topics that we were going to cover as soon as they came in. And then maybe all of a sudden they came in and that has completely changed now. And, the most common will be that they've come in and I can clearly say something's been troubling them. And so we don't go straight into we never go straight into talking about the problem because that doesn't really help just to go diving right on in. It's like let's warm up the system a little bit. But in that moment that I notice that, we'll start going through something that helps them to ground, to settle, and to feel safe.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic. And I found something really interesting. You and I used to have these wonderful business meetings, and I found some notes from Gloria Gonzalez, Eight Elements West from 2012. And my question was, what does it mean to grow up? Be inclusive in communication, be able to communicate with clarity, you said, have empathy with accountability. You talked about pulsation and structure, creating a rhythm, a balance for well being, to thrive versus survive. You talked about the re emerging woman. This is back in 2012, and the somatic art and sciences and the process of somatic detoxes. And we had a wonderful conversation about that. Um, you were doing some clinical studies with somebody on the five stages. We were talking about systems thinking and boat building and micro to macro. And then there was this process of meet, give, get, reach out. Meet to create a supportive community. So I'm going to say, I'm going to leave this meet your body because your body meets the community. And it's essential for support of yourself and support of others. Give, give. Whatever you have, give it, share that knowledge. Our guidance, the knowledge and skill that we have, is the most precious thing that we can share with someone else, particularly a new teacher or someone in our community. And want to get something. Want to get something from today. I want to get something from Gloria. I want to get something. Have a desire to want to receive. The universe loves to give and reach out. If you'd like to reach out and you'd like to connect with Gloria, she's going to tell you where and how you can do this. I want to leave you with this, though, everybody. It's about listening. It's about responding to even the subtle discomfort and never saying, "Oh, it's okay. It's not that bad." We are in relationship, the most important relationship we'll ever have, our body. We are caretakers of the most precious thing we own, our body. Let's listen. Let's give time. Gloria, thanks so much for this wonderful call. I so appreciate it. And where can people find you if they want to find out more about your work, your workshops?
Yeah, you can go on iamthemedicine.com, spell that all out, or 5 cycle expansion with a 5, the number 5 cycle expansion, or 8elementswest.com also. Any of them will take you there to find out more, and you'll see my email on there, and feel free to contact me.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, to find out more about me, please visit my online magazine, Awakening Body and Life. You find it at debbierosas.com. There you can browse, read. You can also sign up to receive every single week inspiring body and life wisdom. And you can also find me on Facebook by searching Nia, on Twitter, Instagram at Nia Technique, and on nianow.com. You can find classes, find a teacher. And then I invite you to go to Nia On Demand and receive 2 weeks free. There you can experience Nia movement, and you can say, I am the medicine, you are, and you can take the class. Why? To feel better. You feel better, you move better, you look better. Thanks again, and don't forget, this is our time to get in. I'm Debbie Rosas, and I'll see you next time.